Guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Learn with Gege. Today we are going to be starting from the very scratch. This is because a lot of people have reached out asking how do they get on the MIT interface. And like I would always say, the first thing you do is to go to your Google Chrome browser and then you type in app inventor.mit.edu and then you hit the enter button on your keyboard, and that will bring you to this interface right here. The next thing you are going to be doing is to click on the create apps, and that will open up a new tab on your browser. You allow that to load, and then you are going to be prompted to select a Google account. If like me you have more than one Google account on your computer, you select your preferred Google account and allow the interface to load. Okay. That will take a little while. We just have to be patient. Accept the terms and conditions down below. And would hit OK. And we'll give it a little more time. I don't want this to be popping up every time I am here, so I'm just going to check that box and hit continue. And then I want to close this. Okay, good. We have the welcome interface, and like I would always say, this is what you get at the beginning. The first thing we are going to be looking at is this green icon here with the word new project. Every time you are required to create a new application, you have to hit on that new project. And assuming you already have some applications already built before, the list of all your applications would be on this page. Before we go into the new projects, let's quickly look at the interface, the basics. We have the connect button, we have the build, we have the settings, help, language, and so on. I am going to be talking briefly about the connect button. All it does is to enable you connect your App Inventor interface on the computer with your AI companion app on your mobile device. So the build is basically used when you have completed your project and your application is ready to be installed on mobile devices. Okay, at this point, let's hit on the new project and get to understand what the MIT interface really looks like. Once I click on this, the first thing I'm going to be having is project name, and let's say I'm going to call this my first app. Let's say I want this to be titled as my first app. If you notice, MIT is saying that project names cannot contain spaces. This is just a warning, but the beauty about MIT is that it would help you out. So for every space we have, MIT is going to default put an underscore there for us. But best practice is for you to always use an underscore whenever your words are separated. And then we'll hit OK. Once we hit the OK button, we allow the interface to load. That will take a little while depending on your network strength. At this point, MIT App has two important interfaces. We have the designer window. This is where we are going to be designing everything, interface of how we want our application to look like when finally built. And for you to even have an idea of what your application is going to look like, you have the phone screen right here to show you exactly what your application is going to be when finally built. On the top right corner, we have the blocks window. Assuming we are done with designing the interface, the blocks window allows us to go into the area where we begin to carry out actual coding, but we need to study and understand most parts of this interface and how to design basic applications before we can go into the blocks session. Like button, share and subscribe to this channel for more exciting contents like this. Okay, so the next thing we need to begin to do now is to understand what the interface looks like. and I would like to quickly show you. MIT has 4 partitions in the designer window, and the first partition is to the left. There we have every kind of buttons, labels, and other kinds of components that will be used in building our application. At the middle of the screen, we have the phone image, and like I have stated before, this is going to be what would model what your application would finally look like. Everything you are designing, MIT has made it such that you can have a clear idea of what the final application is going to look like when built. And then to the right of that phone image, on this side we have this section that is going to hold all the components that you have brought onto the screen. On the far right, we have the properties section, and what this properties section is going to be doing is for every component you may want to edit the properties. You may want to change maybe the font style, you want to change the font, you want to change the background color, you want to rename the text, and so on. So that is the properties on the far right. So on the far left, we have the components by default from MIT, and for every component we need to use in building our application, all we need to do is to drag and drop them on the mobile phone image in the middle of the screen. And then for every component you drop, if you look at the component window right now, each time you drop a component, it will be listed among your list of existing components. So on the left we have the components by default, on the right we have the components that you have selected to work with. And like I said, on the far right, for every component that you have brought onto the screen, there are so many things you can do. For example, I can decide to change the font to bold by checking this button. I can decide to make the text of that font to be in italic instead of the default that it came with. I can decide to also increase the font size by, let's say, typing any random number right now, and I hit enter. You can see on the phone screen it has changed, and a whole lot of other. I can change the height from automatic, I can change it using the pixel level, I can use a fill parent, and so many other kinds of options available. This is fill parent for height, but of course I don't want that right now, so I'm going to return it back to automatic. And then I can even decide to bring up an image for this particular button. I can change the shape, I can rename the text. If I don't want it to be written as button 1, text for button 1, I can decide to call it maybe I want it to be called the start button. And as soon as I change that text, you can see that on the phone screen. And like I said, everything the way it is on the phone screen is exactly what you are going to have when your application is finally built. So let's quickly look at the components on the far left. Buttons, as you know, are triggers in every application. They are the ones that will be used to give or dish out instructions for actions to be carried out. Checkboxes are used to check list of items or to select when you are faced with situations where you need to select out of options. We use checkboxes. Circular progress bars would rotate as you are making progress. Maybe you are downloading an application, you are installing something, you want the circular progress bar to be displayed showing progress. The date picker is going to be used to select dates. Labels are used to label components on your application, and then we have so many others that we'll be talking about as time goes on depending on the application we are developing. I want us to quickly go into the blocks window, and in the blocks window on the far left we have all the code blocks. We have the control blocks which are going to handle all the if then statements, conditional statements. We have the logic blocks that are going to be handling our boolean situations, true or false kind of situations. We had the maths blocks which are going to be basically handling everything mathematical operations. Like button, share and subscribe to this channel for more exciting contents like this. We have the text blocks which are responsible for handling everything text related in the course of building your applications. We have the list blocks, which we are going to be using a whole lot when we are building applications that involve making lists or having list of items. We have the dictionaries, which is not very commonly used, but we'll look at it. Colors block. We have the variables, another very important and frequently used blocks. Here we are going to be using the set variable, the initialized global variable, the get variable, and initialized local variables to create variables which are like containers that would be holding values in the course of building applications. We have the procedures block, which, as we uh, always do, is going to be used for creating important procedures in the course of our applications. And then just below that, we have all the components of our application, and for each component, if you click on each component, code blocks will pop up, which are going to be used for you to create and decide what to do depending on what application you are building. So for this application, or on our interface right now, we simply have the screen 1, we have the button 1, and then we have the label 1, and that's why we have only just these three components right here. On the far right, we have the backpack, which is going to be very useful as you continue to build and develop applications. You would want to keep some frequently used blocks in your backpack so that whenever there is need for them, instead of going to search all afresh, you just open your backpack and then you can fetch them from there. We have the plus and minus buttons, which are going to be primarily used for zooming in and zooming out. We have the waste bin icon, which is also a very important component on this screen. We are basically going to be using it to discard any block that is no longer important to us while building applications. Maybe you bring up a block by mistake and then you discover that you no longer need it and you want to trash it. You just drag it into that waste bin basket, and let me demonstrate that quickly for us. Assuming I brought this block and I no longer want it, all I'll do is to drag it all the way into the waste bin basket. And like I said, if I want this block, because it's a commonly used block, I want it in my backpack, I will drop a copy of it right there. And even if I do not have it on my screen anymore, every time I click on my backpack, it will pop up among the blocks that I have already kept for frequently used purpose. Alright, at this point I want to encourage you to like, share and subscribe on this channel for more valuable content like this. Thank you, and see you in another exciting episode of Learn with Gege.